One other thing I wanted to show you was the macro that I used for this section of my spreadsheet. So basically on the dashboard, we can use these three predetermined asset allocation schemes of conservative, moderate, or aggressive, or we could customize the weights across the different asset classes by using these slider bars and then clicking this button to use the above weights. And actually, I think I'll just run it right now and, and show it to you. So first, I didn't want the buttons, the process to work if these weights didn't total 100% for working and retired. So right now they don't total 100% for both of them. So if I press use above weights, it pops up an error box. And Excel didn't do this. I programmed the button to do this. And I programmed the text that appears inside the error message. So I'm but if it did total 100%, so I'll just make that so, and I press use above weights, it recalculates. And it didn't change a great deal, but it did change. And it's popped these weights down here, and it has said that at this point the graph is using the slider values, which is what I call these things. So I just want to go look at this macro to show y'all what I did. It's not a difficult macro. So that was, what did I call it? Was it the totals message box maybe? That's a weird name for it, but let's edit it. Oh, yes, it was that one. That's a poor name. I probably should have called it something else. So it's really just this little section that we want to look at. Oh, all right. So the first thing I had it check was whether or not the totals were 100%. And just like there are if statements in the formulas or functions that Excel uses, I can program if statements into my VBA, but they look different. So basically, what I do when I'm working with VBA code, I say, okay, here's the problem that I have. How do I accomplish my goal? And I just go type my problem into Google and search for it. But I'm not really specific. I don't say something like, how do I change or create a text box to determine if the working and retired weights are equal to 100%. That's way too specific. I would do something like, how do I use an if statement to determine if a value is equal to a desired value? I'd be really more general. And so my totals message box macro first looks at cell B10, um, which is this cell, and determines whether or not it's if it's not equal to 100, or if C10, which is this one, is not equal to 100. If either of them are not equal to 100, then I want it to pop up this message box, and then I put the text that I want to appear in the message box in quotes. So that's the end of my message that I want in my box. I wish my recorder is only limited to a small portion of my screen, so I'm having some trouble getting it all to appear. And then, oh shoot, I just won't click on it. This VBOK cancel, that is telling Excel what buttons to put on the message box. So put an OK button and a cancel button. And then this VB critical, I'll show you what that does in a minute. And then the error, I'll show you what that does in a minute. I'm just going to rerun this again, and I need to fix it so that that message box pops up. So I'm going to make sure either one of these doesn't total 100%. The VB critical tells it to put this little red box with an X on it. And then the error is the message that goes as the title of my message box. And then I'm gonna make this work again, but then I'm just going to go back and look at the Visual Basic. So if these constraints occur so that neither of those values are equal to 100, do that message box. Else, I just want it to copy the values from the calculation sheet, range L5 to M8, which I will pop over and show you. L5 to M8. These are values that are inputted using my slider text. And I have in a separate section from the values that I copy when I use my conservative, moderate, and aggressive buttons. And so these are generated with my slider bars. I tell it to take those cells and copy them into basically this section right here, because this is the section that's used to actually calculate my overall expected return. And then I tell it to change range F7 to slider values, and that is this little cell right here that's then included in this section right here, that's included as a link in a text box on my graph.